you ever speak to me like that again, you better be wearing a cup.
Baby steps.
One break, I'm in
Okay, friends, let's everybody take your positions, please. Here we go. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, rolling. Dave!
And
Dave!
Unchained.
welcome to Dave and Dave Unchained, a Van Halen podcast. I'm Dave.
And I'm Dave.
We are at episode 73, Dave. It is our first episode of the new year. Happy New Year 2022. God knows what we're in for. Who knows?
It'll be another adventure, that's for sure.
Well, it's already starting to be an adventure as we launch into Van Halen news.
Van Halen.
News! And when I say adventure, I mean adventure. Now, Dave and I were planning at this particular point to talk about David Lee Roth's final shows. Well, we are going to be talking about David Lee Roth, but we're not going to be talking about his final shows because they didn't happen. And we all know that by now. I'm sure everybody who listens to this podcast knows that by now. COVID canceled his shows. This was supposed to be his final bow, and he was going to be playing New Year's Eve, December 31st, January 1st, January 5th, 7th, and 8th, January 14th and 15th, and January 21st and 22nd. Well, it doesn't really matter because they were all canceled.
Right.
Yeah, it's a moot point at this particular juncture. Dave is not going to be performing at the House of Blues. Now, we all know 2 years ago, Dave and I were reporting from the House of Blues about Dave's shows. They weren't known as his final shows at that time. However, he was doing his House of Blues run. And that run got canceled by COVID. There was the March runs, not the ones that we went to. We actually went and saw the run that actually existed. So where they had a Wednesday show, and then Dave and I saw the Friday and Saturday show, which we reported on. You can check back on our episode from 2 years ago if you want to listen to that. Now, Dave was supposed to go back to the House of Blues, and the interesting part about the whole thing is they canceled the shows. They didn't postpone the shows. They didn't reschedule the shows. They canceled the shows. Now, the reason I'm told from experts in the business that they canceled them is because with Vegas shows, people are from all over the world, and it's very difficult to postpone a Vegas show when people fly in from all over the place. It's not like a local show where people can go in a few months. Well, I don't know, but it does seem suspicious. Now, they canceled his shows in March of 2020, which people had tickets for. Well, those weren't postponed. They were canceled. These were canceled. So I don't really know what's going to happen here. They canceled his shows, and then Dave released this statement. And he says here, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. We got rained out. COVID canceled. Future shows, when the benefits for Colorado, Farm Aid, and hospital workers everywhere come up, call me. And I think that is really, really strange, considering that it's not very clear. But we all know that Dave doesn't exactly speak clearly all the time. And then he also made a comment to Fox Digital News where he said, it's not about me anymore. When the benefits for Kentucky, Colorado, and Farm Aid kick in, call me, which is a similar comment, but a little different. I don't know, man. This is crazy. Now, the rumors were that someone in the band got COVID. What they did was, when it first started out, they started canceling the first couple of them. And then from there, they ended up canceling the whole run of it. Now, on Mike's Facebook site, Mike has that Bassman Facebook site, they showed him in Vegas. And it said, here's to 2022. I hope to see you all rocking out with us here in Viva Las Vegas. Now, I'm not sure if he was there for Dave to be sitting in or if he was gearing up for his another run with Sam in Vegas, which we'll talk about a little bit. What do you think that was, Dave? Do you think he was going to join Dave?
That was the rumor going on in the street, because we know Sammy has shows there.
Right.
But it was like, well, is he really there for Sam? Because he's there awfully early for Sam shows.
Right. It seemed
because Sam does not do any advanced rehearsal. Right? I mean, you show up like the week before and you do it. So a lot of people were really wondering, is he going to join Dave on stage? Because if you remember, 2 years ago when we saw Dave and he played, Mike was saying things to the effect of, oh, I knew Dave was playing there and I would have went and gone on stage with him, but I had a previous engagement with Sam already. Otherwise, I would have been in Vegas. A lot of people were thinking that Mike was going to show up and jam with Dave on stage.
And let's be honest, he made that post right before they were about to start, because originally they had canceled the first couple ones with like New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, and then they were going to start again on the 5th or something, but it didn't happen. But here's the thing, if Sam is your boss, do you really go and moonlight with Dave and piss him off?
You would think, but then again, maybe Mikey gets a pass.
Well, but the thing is like Sam having Mike is such a bonus in his corner. You know what I mean? It's like a kind of a coup to have Mike because it's the two of them and they're such buddies and they're so close. Like, I mean, let's be honest. Mike has like very little relationship with Dave. I mean, he wasn't even in Van Halen when Dave was in Van Halen the past decade that he was in.
I know, but Mike is one of the few members of the band who doesn't hold grudges. So maybe he just said, fuck it, I'm going to go to Vegas and what the hell, jam with Dave one more time before he rides into the sunset.
Maybe. Well, I'll tell you, the interesting thing, though, is Dave didn't talk about Mike joining him at all. What he did talk about was Alex joining him. And let me tell you something. Wolf weighed in on this, and he didn't make any bones about it. So when Wolf was interviewed for Spin Magazine, they asked him about his uncle Alex Van Halen joining Dave on stage. And he said, frankly, I don't think so. I'm not talking for Al or anything. I haven't talked to Al about it. But I mean, that doesn't really seem like something Al would do. The thing with Van Halen that people should have learned by now is that if it doesn't come from them, it's not true. And Al has not made any public statements about this, so I wouldn't expect it. If he didn't say it, it's probably not true. So he was pretty direct about that. This thing is so weird because Dave keeps talking about Alex. Wolf completely shoots down Alex being there. There's no signs of Alex being there. There's signs of Mike being there, but no one's talking about Mike being there. Then the whole thing gets canceled. And then Dave's tweeting a drawing, something funny happened on the way to Vegas. And then he also showed a picture of his trunk, of which he, I guess, travels with, and a picture of him on the side and says, to be continued. So now I'm starting to think, like, this guy's going to show up on a summer tour. I swear to God, Dave. I swear to freaking God. I get that feeling that that's what's going to happen. And let me tell you something. What I'm thinking is Dave just canceled these dates, right? And on top of it, Sammy has an album coming out. And I'm thinking at 20th anniversary of the Sam and Dave tour this summer. What do you think of that? Sam and Dave going out one last time, 20th anniversary. What do you think?
Those two will never do that. They will not tour together. Will Dave do a summer tour? I don't know. I really think he's done with touring. I think maybe if he had another shot at Vegas in the summertime when it wasn't as risky, I could see him doing that. I don't think Al's going to show up at any time for anything. Dave never said, hey, Al's going to be there. He made some kind of strange reference to Al, and then there was like some news outlet that said Al was going to be there. And admittedly, it was like what Roths said was his usual bozy bop. Like, you could interpret it a couple of different ways. But I don't know, man. I think unless he gets another shot at Vegas, I don't know if he's going to do the tour thing.
But I mean, what is he going to do? House of Blues for the third time in cancel? I mean, that's crazy at this point.
Well, if he does, but here's the thing. He always books the House of Blues in the winter. He needs to book it like in the summer or early fall.
Well, I tell you, I don't know what he's going to do, but I guess what really turned me on it is his attitude on that last comment that we had in Van Halen News, where he's like, oh, I should be on my 6th retirement by now. Like, he's like not serious about it now. He was initially serious about it, and now he's joking around and he's dicking around. Who knows? They could offer him some summer tour and he'll go out and play, and I wouldn't be surprised. Who the hell knows? You know.
Well, the thing is, but he's completely tone deaf to all these people who had booked travel arrangements and hotel arrangements to go to Vegas and see him. I mean, this is all last minute. I mean, what he should have done. I mean, hindsight's always 20/20. It's always easy to be the Monday morning quarterback. But they should have just canceled the whole thing. I guess maybe they thought, well, it'll be all right. In a few days we could do the other shows. But, they wait till like the day before to cancel. Yeah. And people are already there. So now you're already in Vegas. I mean, not that there's nothing to do in Vegas. There's plenty to do. But the reason you're there is no longer happening. I mean, going to concerts somewhere else that aren't by you are always a crapshoot anyway, especially with older artists. There always seems to be issues with health or whatever. Shows get canceled. That's like a roll of dice anyway. I mean, I had to tell you when we went to see Roth in Vegas, I was like, I hope this happens. This was even before COVID.
Really?
Well, Dave, first of all, Van Halen does not have a good track record in recent years.
Yeah.
So that's number one.
Yeah.
Number two, like I said, older artists, you just never know. And Dave, you and I don't gamble. It's not like we could go to Vegas and gamble all day.
No.
So yeah, I do have those concerns. So it was really like there was never any, hey, look, so sorry. We know a lot of people came and we had to make a last minute decision. So sorry. We'll make it up to you. There's nothing like that. It was almost like, too bad, so sad. Yeah, COVID happened. What can I tell you? Homala, babala, boobala, blah, 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 blah. You know? And it's like typical Dave stuff. And it's,
I know.
Come on, man. We know that sometimes you're not on the same planet as us, but have a heart.
I know.
Like your diehard fans were planning to go and see you. And now he gives the impression that he just doesn't give a flying frig.
I know.
And if he does this the next time, I think a lot of his fans are going to be like, you know what? If this guy's going to call chicken again, and I'm not saying that like COVID's not a good reason to cancel. But it's like, he's already canceled twice. Are you going to try that a third time? How many times are you going to be Charlie Brown with the football when Lucy pulls it away from you?
Exactly. That's the thing. And well, I have to be honest with you. It's getting to be that with almost every show now. It's getting to the point where if anybody gets tickets for a show, you got to ask yourself, is this show going to happen? And it's getting too tricky, too crazy. I just wrote a story today about Steve Vai is supposed to do a show at the end of February. It's now moved to October 30th. That's a jump and a half. I mean, that's almost a year away. I mean,
it is, but at least he was like, you know what? I'm not taking the chance.
Yeah. I know. And the funny thing is like, you really just don't know. There's so many people that book their tours like ahead of time. Like, for example, John Mayer, right? John Mayer booked his tour all the way in February. From last year. Okay, he released his album and then pushed his dates all the way to late February. And now we're coming up to like late February, which is like a month away. And he's probably like, do I have to reschedule the tour? I mean, it's like crazy. When he announced his shows and pushed it, I was like, wow, he's really shooting them out there. Like, wow, I'm going to go way beyond the COVID spectrum. I'm going to go late February. This is like in early 2021. And he's like, I'm just going to push it all. And you're like, wow, that's a year after the album comes out. That's how far it is. And you're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
You know,
but sadly, that's the new normal. Like, what else can you do?
I know. It's just getting really out of control. But the weird part is, it's like you cast it so far away, and then you get to the date, and you're like, oh my God, I have to reschedule this? It's just getting so hairy. And the funny thing is Ticketmaster just wants to sell tickets, because their attitude is like, hey, we'll get the money, and we'll collect the interest. Dave, the interest, like we talked about before, the interest they're collecting on the stadium tour, I can't even imagine. They sold $75 million worth of tickets.
No, I know. Well, and that's the BS part, is that at some point, like after some kind of time frame, you should have to give the money back.
Yeah. I mean,
if the show hasn't happened in a year, you just have to say, sorry, we're going to give the money back, and we're just going to sell tickets all over again.
I know. It's crazy. Moving on to the next item here. I tell you, this is crazy. It's such crazy news for a band that doesn't exist anymore. I say it all the time. So Valerie Bertinelli is putting out a new book. This one's called Enough Already, which sounds like that would be your memoir, Dave. Enough Already.
Well, that's what I feel like with another book from Val.
I know. Enough Already. Learning to Love the Way I Am Today. So that's her new book, and I can't believe this. I can't believe she put this in a book. So anyway, in this book is what a lot of things that Dave and I talked privately and suspected. We didn't want to put it on the podcast because, you know, it's people's personal life, and we're not going to start speculating about their personal relationships on the podcast. However, she's making this incredibly public here. She went on People Magazine. You don't get more public than going on the cover of People Magazine. And she was talking about how her relationship with Ed has been altered over time behind